Today's guest on a Life and a Living podcast is Francess Jones. So Francess is the author of the book called How to Wow, another book called The Wow Factor, and has created an app called The Interview Wow. So you can see that the wow is a very, very big issue for Francess, and also what her work is about helping us to actually have that wow factor and to really make an impact. And of course, that need and requirement for us to make an impact, crosses all the areas of our life and everything that we are trying to do, be that personal or be that professional. And one of the things that we talk about during the interview is the importance of the choice of language, and in particular the choice of words, because words matter and mean different things in different contexts. So being really careful and precise with our language, which is so massively important. But also in today's world, something that is becoming massively important is how to have that wow factor in a virtual world, because we are living so much in the virtual world. And while as we come out of COVID, that may change and diminish, but it certainly, we know that virtual world will continue to be massively important. And it is really, really important to us. But also how to wow in social media. When she talks about wowing in social media, she isn't talking about, how do you pretend you've got the perfect life when you don't have it? How do you actually make other people feel terribly jealous of this wonderful life that you don't have? But actually how to really make an impact and do that the right way. Also, the fact that Francess is a body language expert, she really does add great credibility to what she says, and her expertise is absolutely phenomenal. So I really do recommend that you listen to this quite intently and take notes from it, because she's got a lot of great, great tips. If you want to get more information and more great interviews, then please go to my website, www.johnmurphyinternational.com, where there are tons of resources there and really good people that we've interviewed, some fascinating people. We've been very blessed to have so many good people on the podcast. But in the meantime, sit back and enjoy the interview with Francess Jones. Francess, thank you so much indeed for joining us on the Winning Teams podcast. We're delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be on the Winning Teams podcast.
Yeah, listen, this is interesting times. Your tagline is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but your tagline is, bring your best self to business and life. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm just wondering, is your best self different in business and in life?
Well, these days more than ever, I would say no, because life and business have become so melded in the times of Corona. But I mean, yes, the other thing I talk about quite a bit with my clients is that you really are never off duty. And so, for example, if you're going into a meeting with a potential investor or purchaser of your product, but you stop on the way to get a cup of coffee and you are seen, screaming at the barista, it's really hard to come across as calm, cool, and collected when you get upstairs for the meeting. So my rule of thumb is you're really never off duty.
Okay. And because I'm interested, because one of the things that I am continuously fascinated by, and my work is kind of taking me in that space, is that okay, the start of my work would have been very much focused around business and business coaching, and not that it's gone to life coaching, because that's not something that I really aspire to, but it's kind of much more holistic, and it's about actually helping people to have a more significant life, whatever that means to them, or leaving a legacy. And I suppose, why is it, do you think, that when we talk about these things, there's so much focus on the business but not on the rest of it? Why is that?
I think that we want to believe still, despite the fact that everything points to the opposite, that we have a private life. That when we go home, people aren't still tracking our movements. It's not true. But I think it is a fantasy world that we had been living in, that there's a distinction between work and home. And maybe it's sometimes for people who don't necessarily love what they're doing at their job. So that it really feels important to them to make that at least mental distinction,
Yeah.
even if it's not
Yeah.
possible to have a physical distinction.
I think it's interesting because one of the other things that's kind of coming up in my own coaching world is that this whole time of, a strange time is actually causing people to be quite reflective about what they're doing and the whole purpose. Can I just touch on your book, The How to Wow, Proven Strategies for Selling Your Brilliant Self in Any Situations? Question number one that I kind of thought, how do I know what my brilliant self is?
Okay, your brilliant self is, there are just moments, sort of not all day, every day, but there are moments when you just find yourself speaking from a place of authenticity, and you might not be certain that you're right, but you're certain that your intentions are good.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, people ask me a lot about what makes a compelling public speaker. And it is those two things. It's commitment and it's authenticity. And and then finally, the third, really the magic piece is thinking about how you can make the person you're speaking with's life better. So taking that focus off of yourself and saying, how can I help? How can I improve? How can I give this person a boost in a way that just based on my own experience?
Okay. And without asking you to kind of recite the entire book, but if you were taking kind of the headlines, what are the things that if you want to wow, that you really need to be focusing in on?
Well, I give everybody the same kind of quick cheat sheet for this, which is Yale University did a study of the 12 most persuasive words in the English language, and the most persuasive word in the English language is you. So it's, again, putting things in the context of, as I was thinking about what you might be worried about, as I was thinking about what the problems you are trying to solve. The next statistic I like people to have comes from Ellen Langer, who's a social psychologist at Harvard. And she discovered that if you give people the because behind why you're doing something, you increase the possibility of cooperation from 60 to 94%.
Can you elaborate on that piece? Just to elaborate on that, I find that really interesting.
Yeah, because, the example I give quite a bit is if you're at the supermarket and somebody cuts the line, you're, grumpy. But if they turn to you and they say, do you mind if I cut the line because I'm late to pick up my kids at school? You'll let the line cut out. You're still going to be really grumpy about it. But once you hear the because behind why it's occurring, you tend to get on board with it. And what happens is we get up in the morning, we're so super clear on why we're doing things that we forget to give people the because. It's intuitive for us at that point. You get up, you have a plan, and you start executing your plan.
Right.
But other people have their plan.
Right.
And then the third part of it, and it comes from the Duncan Hines cake mix marketing team. And I know your international audience might not be as familiar with Duncan Hines cake mix, but it's something we have in the United States, which is essentially cake mix in a box. And what they discovered is that when they have the home baker add the egg, they're more invested in the success of the cake. They feel better about themselves. And there's no reason for it. We have powdered egg. We have the technology. So how does that translate? It's figuring out in every situation, what's the egg? Where does what you want or need intersect with what the person you're talking with wants or needs? So again, it's just making sure that you keep that at the forefront of your consciousness.
That's interesting. And in the current environment, in if you think about, I was going to say in normal times, whatever that is or was, and it certainly won't be the same when we come out of this. But in previous times, okay, you can wow with your physicality, with your presence, with your dazzling repartee, or whatever it might be. But for many organizations, it's it's kind of what we're doing now. It's video calls. So how do you wow in that environment?
Well, for video calls, I think that you need to consider, again, the physicality and the tonality just as much as you would for in person. So blue is the color we trust the most, and it photographs best. I'm wearing blue right now while I'm talking to you. Um, I think that you need to consider your background. It's astonishing to me, kind of the kooky backgrounds that I see on a lot of people's calls. One easy fix that I often recommend is to get a standing desk, because when you're standing, you automatically have more resonance and authority in your voice, and your clothes just look better. So, it's all of these different kinds of things. Consider your lighting scheme. You don't want to look like you're in the witness protection program. You don't want to look like you've been growing mushrooms in your basement. You're trying to find that happy medium. But the main thing is that the medium, much as with television, anytime you're working through a screen, it flattens the personality. So you have to be that much more animated, that much more interesting. You have to wake up your face to make your face interesting to look at. I make my clients do acting exercises. We have something called the pumpkin raisin face exercise. And we all make our face as big as pumpkins and as small as raisins. Right. And it wakes up your face so people are interested in looking at you. So right. all of these things start to impact, how you're perceived.
Okay. And I mean, if you look at all of that and what everybody is kind of working their way through, what do you think we're going to take out of our current experience into the next phase when, we're all not locked down and locked in or locked out or whatever the term is, but when we actually get back into, people are out, they're circulating, what will the learning be, do you think, from this experience that we will bring to the next phase, which is still about selling yourself and having that wow impact?
I mean, I think that we will certainly cherish the times that we get to spend together in a very different way. I think that we will, people who before might have thought, I don't need to go to that conference, will be like, oh, I'm so excited to go somewhere. That conference sounds amazing. Yeah. So I hope that those things.
Yeah, I don't know what it's about, but it sounds amazing because it just lets me out of the house. Yeah.
Let's just go. And then, but hopefully the other thing is that people will understand that it is possible, for people who have small children or elderly parents or whatever it is that they need to accomplish, hopefully the people in charge of them will realize that flex time works and they can let their team be the masters of their own fate, essentially 80% of the time, and work still gets done. So I hope that translates.
And, I mean, I know that you're a body language expert and you touch a little bit about that, but, in virtual meetings, what are the tips that you would give to people listening to say, okay, well, this is what you do, this is what you don't do in terms of kind of conveying the wrong message with your body language?
I think that you need to, as I said, if you can do them standing, that's delightful. But the thing that I talk about quite a bit is most people will want to be sitting, is you want to be sitting with your back off the back of your chair. And you can see me now, but the difference is if I'm here, I don't look like I care. The minute I sit up a little bit, I seem like I'm engaged, I'm enthusiastic, I'm committed. I refer to it, for those people who have watched Downton Abbey, as the Downton Abbey dinner party posture, which is you keep the small of your back off the back of your chair. You sit up, you sit forward, you look like you want to be there. And, you stay with the green light in meetings. You don't, you're not typing, you're not all of those different kinds of things that people start to do, where, all of a sudden you can tell if somebody's checking their Instagram while you're talking to them.
And I think also that because it's kind of just, it's your head and shoulders and that it's much more concentrated. So I think, when people, because I find, okay, I use, WebExes and Zooms and all that a lot because the nature of my work. So I'm quite used to it. But I find that actually it accentuates if somebody kind of zones out a bit, you actually see it nearly quicker, I think, than you do in real time or face to face.
Yeah.
The other thing I was interested in, and I know you talk about it, and is about social media. And, one of the, I mean, great things about social media, but one of the, the kind of the downsides in my view is that, it's kind of promoting the image that everyone's life is wonderful and perfect. And gosh, how wonderful I am. I mean, how do you wow in social media without getting into that kind of, isn't my life wonderful? And here I am sitting on the beach and, the West Indies or whatever it might be, sipping my pina colada or whatever they do in the West Indies. But, but that sort of image, how do you wow, but still be real in that environment?
It's a fine line. And so there are a few things that I require. With the younger people I speak to, I say to them, I don't want you to post anything that might say I can't be trusted with $100,000. So, which is a very specific kind of amount of money. It's not so little that they're like, well, this picture I think is totally fine. And it's not so much that it seems unrealistic. So you're trying to convey that just a sense of not propriety, but just common sense that you that you would want to see in a photo. But then I also don't. I mean, I know that people, and I was speaking earlier about authenticity. I think you want to show that not everything's always perfect. That there are days when you struggle. That there are days when you're frustrated. That there are days when you feel like you've spent the whole day rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. But you don't really need to show the complete underbelly of what's occurring. I don't know. I think that there are a lot of different shades of gray that are possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think I picked up a quote from you is that don't tweet anything you wouldn't want to see on the front page of the New York Times.
Yes, don't.
Good advice. It's good because it is interesting that in terms of career interviews, that your social media profiles are being checked.
They're asking young people to open their social media profiles during interviews.
During interviews, I didn't realize
so
that.
Let's just open up that Instagram feed right now and take a look at it. I mean, if that's something that you want to do, then I say that's great. But yeah, no, you have to think. I mean, just this exercise common sense.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading about somebody. I can't remember exactly who it was now, but they had it was actually in the, I can't remember, is in business or it was in the art world, but they had just got a very, very prominent role, and then it was covered they had some 8 years ago there were some quite racist tweets that they had sent out. And I mean, and it just came back and completely unraveled the new role that they had got. So you really got to be careful.
Yes.
About what you're doing. You wrote the book, the Wow Factor, the 33 things you must and must not do to guarantee your edge in today's business world. Now, without going to all 33, but what are some of the things that that the audience can take away and do today that you would pick up on and share with us today?
One of the things I talk about in that book is the importance of calling with no news. So what happens a lot is we love to call with the good news. You just made the sale, you just came through with whatever. You pick up the phone, you are so fired up. We know that we should call with the bad news. We don't love to do it. We drag our feet, but we do get that call done. But to me, the call that I love the most is when someone calls and they say, I know you asked me to do this, and you asked for it to be done by this time. I am calling at this time to let you know it's not done yet. I haven't forgotten. I haven't, spaced out. I haven't fallen off the grid. You're still the forefront of my consciousness, and I will get back to you. Those are the calls that my team knows they're a requirement around here. Because otherwise, again, my instinctive response is they forgot all about
Yes, exactly.
it.
Yeah, yeah. It's
And
it's that it's that vacuum, isn't it? It's the silence.
and the thing is that what's so upsetting is that for the employee, when they get the call from their boss saying, "Are you working on this?" and they've been working on it all day, and they're so upset because they feel like their boss doesn't trust them. So
Mm.
just if you just make the call, you won't have to get the micromanaging phone call from your boss.
Great one.
So, so it just, I mean, again, when I set up a timeline with my employees, we have the by when I want it done. And I give them also the times by when I need them to just check in. Just set an alarm on your phone. Let me know I'm still working. I have the answer. I don't have the answer. I haven't forgotten about it. So that I can relax and, ostensibly start thinking about something more important.
Okay, that's a great one. Other ones that people can adopt today and take away and do something with?
One of the other things I talk about a lot is the importance of having what I refer to as a Renaissance attitude, which is you want to keep current outside of your particular silo of information. Because we don't know anymore where the next idea is coming from or what the next, the people at Burberry didn't know they were going to be making masks a few weeks ago.
Right.
The companies are having to adopt and change so fast. I think Mr. Dyson, did I just read, just came up with how to make a ventilator. He got the task, he got it done in 10 hours. Okay, you made a now go. So I think that in order to be able to pivot the way that we're all going to need to keep pivoting and keep pivoting and keep pivoting over the next few weeks and months, you have to keep current outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And the ways to do that are, arrange to change your, every day when you open up your browser, you usually probably read the news from the same source. Arrange to change that at least once a day. The Metropolitan Museum sends out an artwork of the day. I get a word of the day. You want to just really just check in across multiple disciplines right now, because that's what stimulates your thinking, and that's what's going to help you again in that moment that you need to pivot, because the good idea might not come from within your area of expertise.
Yeah, I think that's so true, and I think that's such a good point to make. And I think that I think one of the changes that's going to occur going forward from where we are right now is that I think there's going to be this emphasis on, kind of trying things, getting things out. It's not going to be this. I mean, yes, there are going to be some of these huge projects, but I think people are going to say, okay, well, let's just do a part of it. Let's validate and let's move on. And very much an agile approach. But let's actually really look at what we're going to do. We're going to spend that amount of money. We're going to test it. We're going to have a look at it, and then we're going to the next, iteration. Whereas previously we would say, okay, we'd scope the entire thing, and then we'll actually review it at the very end of it, right? And I think it's just going to be
Focus group, and
yeah.
let's talk about what color it's going to be. We don't have time for that anymore.
No, exactly. And so everything is kind of in beta all the time. And I think it's going to be that agile way of thinking and that ability to pivot, as you say, from one to the other, and testing and kind of reiterate and do that sort of thing. I think that's just going to be so much more important in terms of the new world. Francis, this has been really interesting. I found it fascinating. I love the whole thing about wow, because I think it just explains to everybody exactly what you do, and I think that the publications that you have, and I saw the kind of the download that you have on social media, which I certainly would recommend people to go, particularly if you're looking for a job. It wouldn't be any harm for you to go and read that and just have a little bit of a light bulb moment. Before I ask you to share where people can get in touch with you, two questions. One, a book that you have read that has had an impact upon you and why you would recommend it.
The book that I love the most is a novel by J.D. Salinger called Franny and Zoe.
Right.
It is aside from the fact that the writing is so beautiful that not in a weird or difficult way, but it's exquisite. The story itself is about I can't, it's hard to sum up. It is extremely short. You can probably read it in 2 hours.
Wow.
And to me, it was life-changing, and it continues to be life-changing every time I read it. So that is that.
That's fantastic. So it's what's it called again?
It's called Franny and Zoe.
And yeah, that's not one I've come across. J.D. Salinger.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's not, everyone knows The Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah. That's the when
It's
you
a
said
lovely
J.D.
book.
Salinger, that's immediately the book that came to mind. Yeah.
No. This is the one. This is the one I love the most. I mean, I love everything, but
Yeah.
this is the one. So,
Fantastic. That'll definitely go on my list of books and
oh,
add to
good.
my
So glad.
add to my collection that I'm just spend my life kind of constantly trying to get through and never actually achieving, but it's still a joy to do that. Second question is about daily rituals. If you have them, what they are and what they do for you.
I am blessed to have an Ashtanga practice, an Ashtanga yoga practice.
Right.
So that I've had for 23 years. And one of the things you do as an Ashtangi is you get on your yoga mat 6 days a week. You're tired, you get on your mat. You're sad, you get on your mat. You're happy, you get on your mat. You're frustrated, guess where you go? Your mat. And I actually just posted about it the other day. It's always useful. It's gotten me through, living in New York for 9/11 and the deaths of both of my parents, and happy times, when I got married. And more than ever, it is my kind of my touchstone and my refuge these days. Just that consistency of this, the same poses and the same order. That's what you do. You do it 6 days a week. You do it.
And how long would you do it for each day?
And again, you can shorten your practice if you don't have time. Today I did quite a short practice because I knew I was going to be speaking with you. But usually it's about an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, so it's a decent amount of time. Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic. I love it.
Yes.
That's lovely. Francess, where can people actually get in touch with you? Where's the best way that we'll put everything in the show notes, but if they're listening so that they can do it now?
Well, they go to my name, which is francescolejones.com. And then if you have any questions, one of the things that I put on my website that I highly recommend for everybody, if it's possible, is I put an ask a question button on my website. So all of the questions that anybody has for me roll directly to my phone. And I do answer them one by one. I answer all of them. So if people have any questions about work or job interviews or selling things or customers or whatever you are trying to wow at doing, please send me a note, because it is one of my great joys to get these questions and see if I can help.
Fantastic. Well, we'll certainly have that in the show notes, and I certainly would recommend because great resources on your website. So I really would recommend to anyone to actually go there, because there's a lot of really, really good content. Francess, thank you so much indeed for taking your time, for shortening your yoga practice this morning to be with us. But it's been a real pleasure to have you here on the Winning Teams podcast.
Thank you so much.